Bill Bosher, educational icon.
He was a statesman. He was an innovative leader.
If you knew Bill to any great extent, he was always a people person.
He was just a man who loved living.
Our lives have been changed because we had an opportunity to know and interact with Bill Bosher.
I remember knowing Bill in the mid-'80s, just coming out of Highland Springs High School, and the impact he had really dealt with the way in which he treated people and the way in which he treated students. If you knew Bill to any great extent, he was always a people person, but he always had his faith in mind, and he always had people in mind, and he combined those two to help wherever he could.
Bill Bosher could meet a student who was coming to him to seek a way forward in life, and he'd treat them the same way you might have seen him treat the governor yesterday. And I think any of us who knew Bill were just always extraordinarily moved by watching the way he treated other people throughout life.
You could be in a room of 100 or 200 people, and if Dr. Bosher came up to you to speak, you felt like you were the most important person in the room. He really valued people and valued friendships, and so he touched a lot of people that way.
He was the total package. I mean, he started out as a classroom teacher. He moved into administration as a principal. He became a superintendent of public schools. And then when I was in the state senate, and at the same time, he became the superintendent of public instruction for the entire state of Virginia.
I mean, we could talk about policies that he impacted. He certainly was right in the middle of the standards of learning, especially at the very beginning when there was so much controversy around it. Bill didn't mind jumping right into that because he believed that was the right thing to do for the children of Virginia.
We have a tremendous program of specialty centers in our high schools across the county. And so that means that there are many different opportunities for students as opposed to one-size-fits-all with programming. And Dr. Bosher was the superintendent who got that off the ground, and I think that's one of his important legacies.
And he was a person who was superintendent of our two largest school systems, Henrico and Chesterfield. And in both of those systems, what he did was to try to ensure that the public schools and the quality of education in the public schools were competitive with what you could get at the most expensive private schools.
As educators, we are expected to understand the theory behind the work, but even more importantly, we're expected to understand the needs of people, the needs of children, and the adults who work and support our students. And so more than anything else, from Bill, I learned to laugh at myself, learn to enjoy the work, and really learn about the importance of building relationships and making other people feel special.
Our relationship really deepened when I had the opportunity, my family and I, to move to Hanover County, where I served as superintendent. Bill and Joanne are both graduates of Lee Davis High School, and all of their children followed their legacy as graduates of Lee Davis High School. And Bill's dad was a member of the school board for 16 years in Hanover County. As only Bill could do, he would like to put his arm around me and introduce me to others as his superintendent. And of course, you know, I knew to be gracious about that introduction, but after a while I developed enough confidence and gumption to just feed it back to him. And when he would introduce me as his superintendent, I found myself always introducing him then as my chief taxpayer.
He's always telling funny stories. He must have had an encyclopedia of funny stories in his hip pocket.
His speeches were some of the most memorable impacts that I remember. And he always started off with something funny, which drew his audience in, and it was usually about himself. He made fun of himself.
That while principal of Highland Springs High School, I met Anthony at a dance, and he taught me more about the English language in 20 seconds than I learned as an English major, because he used the same word, bad, same intonation, bad, same inflection, bad, and did two different things with his eyes. He could say, that band is bad, and he meant good. He could say, that Miss Jones is bad, and he meant terrible. As a matter of fact, I want to tell you, I can't get them high enough to say it's great to have you back.
Ever since I've known him, he's worn a bow tie.
That, characteristic bow tie that everyone knew.
They're one and the same. They can't be separated.
During one presentation, if I recall right, he cut my tie, but I couldn't cut his because he had on one of those silly bow ties.
That became pretty popular, I think, in Virginia, and he was one of the leaders. Now, one of his brothers will tell you that Bill actually copied him, so I'm not quite sure who started it in the family, but apparently it's a family tradition.
That Bill wore the same suit or something that looked like the same suit every day.
Well, a lot of us knew him as one suit Bosher, or sometimes two suit Bosher, depending on how well you knew him. One was ragged and torn, the other was bright new for presentations and so forth.
And he always was amused that we could tell he had a new suit. He just didn't understand how we knew it. But we knew it because the other one was really worn out.
And it was always combined, I think, beyond the bow tie with this extraordinary hug that he managed to give almost everyone that he met in the course of a day.
That big bear hug. And he did not mind hugging anyone that he came in contact with.
Probably what we all share is that we miss his hugs. There was no more huggable gentleman than Bill Bosher, and he always led with that hug. I miss that a lot.
There probably was never a person who deserved the label educator more than Bill Bosher. First in the classroom with his students, then as an administrator helping teachers themselves. As superintendent, he taught us about the possibilities of schools and fought vigorously for them. Even during his so-called retirement, Bill Bosher educated the public on the airwaves.
This is not math taught in schools. The president often...
A busy man who always made time for students, for colleagues, and for family. A leader who was never too busy to lend a hand and never afraid to get involved, like when he jumped in the Manchester pool for the United Way. From his signature fashion to his hearty hugs, to the way he enjoyed telling a tale, Bill Bosher was always a welcome sight to all who knew him, because he was always so happy to see us all.